Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has intensified his approach towards officials not fulfilling their duties in the ongoing conflict with Russia. During a recent visit to the eastern Donetsk region, Zelenskyy met with troops and local officials to discuss essential issues like water supply, social concerns, evacuation plans, and rebuilding homes, as well as awarding medals to troops.
Подякувати вам за захист нашої держави. Подякувати вашим побратимам, яких зараз тут немає. І від всіх нас, від всього народу України.
In Kyiv, Zelenskyy highlighted that some officials have not been present in key areas for over 6 months, signaling upcoming serious potential actions. Russian forces have heavily bombarded the city of Zelenskyy in Donetsk. Over the last 24 hours, Russian shelling has hit 20 settlements. Around 250 people have been evacuated from Donetsk since Tuesday. Western military aid is beginning to reach Ukrainian forces, with the US expected to announce an additional $150 million in munition support.
Outgoing Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte has been officially selected as NATO's next Secretary-General. Rutte will assume his position as head of the Defence Alliance from the 1st of October 2024, following the decade-long reign of former Norwegian Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg. A long-time supporter of Rutte, Stoltenberg welcomed the appointment. Posting on X, he said, "I know I am leaving NATO in good hands." Mark Rutte became Prime Minister of the Netherlands for the first time in 2010, but resigned last July after his four-party coalition fell out over how to deal with migration. He faced a number of scandals while in office, but gained the nickname Teflon Mark for his ability to bounce back from adversity. Rutte has supported Ukraine and its right to defend itself since Russia invaded the country in February 2022. He previously said it was one of the reasons he went for the NATO job. Once in office, Rutte will serve a minimum term of 4 years.
Julian Assange is now a free man. The Wikileaks founder pleaded guilty to one US espionage charge in exchange for his freedom. The 52-year-old Australian editor, who gained prominence for publishing classified US Army documents 2 decades ago, left a US federal court in Saipan, Mariana Islands, after striking the deal.
He faced 175 years in prison for publishing evidence of war crimes, human rights abuse and US wrongdoing around the world. Today he pleaded guilty to an offence for having published information in the public interest, for which he's won journalism awards the world over and been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize every year for the past decade. This sets a dangerous precedent.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese welcomed Assange's arrival from Parliament.
Mr Assange has since boarded a flight to Australia and will land in Australia later today. Now, regardless of your views about his activities, and they will be varied, Mr Assange's case has dragged on for too long. I've said repeatedly that there was nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration.
The internet publisher's guilty plea meant he was allowed to return to Australia without time served. The felony is accompanied by a 5-year jail sentence. Incarceration Assange avoided as he was jailed for half a decade in London. As the press freedom advocate's plane taxied from the South Pacific back to his native Australia, it puts the legal saga spanning continents, international politics and health episodes to rest.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister.
A decade after Russia seized the Crimean Peninsula and attacked the eastern region of Donbass, the European Union has launched membership talks with their neighbour, Ukraine. The EU's presidency spokesperson said accession will be demanding, but there will be support every step of the way.
Together, we can build a stronger, more secure and prosperous Europe for all. Now, let's all get to work to make it happen. Let's be fair and honest. The road will be long and we will not always be an easy one. We know that we have a lot of work ahead on us. Member States will decide when Ukraine fulfills the conditions to move ahead based on objective progress, but with unwavering determination. We are confident Ukraine can make it. We will be supporting you on every step of the way. You are not alone. We are with you.
Welcome to this press conference.
Just a few hours later, Moldova also launched its membership talks.
Republic of Moldova.
There is no doubt that Moldova is an integral part of Europe with a shared history, a shared heritage and a shared culture.
It's a major milestone on their European paths, but the talks could take years to conclude.
More and more satellites are being sent to space. Most of them move in what is known as low Earth orbit, about 1,000 kilometers from Earth. Yet, the increase of satellites has expanded demands to maintain a sustainable and clean space and to avoid coalitions. This was one of the topics of discussion at the European Space Forum in Brussels. Some companies have already started some projects to bring internet to remote places and are adapting the satellites.
All of our satellites will have active propulsion systems, which means that we can maneuver them to avoid any collision. We will also have a specific type of shielding so that whenever we have a collision with a small debris, elements of the satellites are protected.
According to ESA data, there are about 12,500 satellites in Earth orbit, and the number keeps growing.
The space race is growing and growing. Now, for example, we have from the US, we have constellations are launched into space, and space becomes more and more also a business. So it's interesting for private firms to launch satellites into space.
The problem grows when satellites are no longer operational and are still in space. At the moment, it is estimated that there are about 2,700 in this situation. On top of this, space debris, such as small parts of these devices, are flying around at high speed. To prevent this, the agency has launched the Zero Debris Charter.
The aim of this charter is to go towards zero debris in 2030. It's a non-binding document with high-level objectives. And also it's community-driven, meaning that ESA will include many stakeholders.
Brussels will present the first European Space Act in the coming months.
The European Union and Serbia signed an agreement on operational cooperation in border management with the European Border and Coast Guard Agency Frontex. They agreed to start deploying guards across the country's borders and not just those with EU members, in a bid to control and prevent illegal migration and cross-border crime.
Ovo je drugi sporazum ove vrste koji potpisujemo sa Frontexom i zahvaljujući njemu policijske snage Frontexa biće raspoređene ne samo na državne granice sa Bugarskom i Mađarskom u okviru operacije Srbija kopno, već i na državne granice Srbije sa trećim zemljama. Ovo će značajno doprineti našoj zajedničkoj borbi protiv prekograničnog kriminala i irregularnih migracija.
Serbia is also part of the Balkan route, which also runs via Turkey, Bulgaria and North Macedonia. A route thousands of people from the Middle East, Afghanistan, Pakistan and North Africa use annually to reach wealthy Western countries.
US space agency NASA has launched its final SpaceX weather satellite into orbit, completing a fleet of 4 at the heart of an $11 billion upgrade to the nation's forecasting infrastructure. The GEOESU satellite took off from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on Tuesday afternoon, although its launch was delayed by the threat of storms. The new satellite will provide continuous real-time coverage of weather and dangerous environmental conditions, including hurricanes, across much of the Western Hemisphere.
Euronews. The news.